Welcome back to another episode of the Employer Exchange podcast. Our goal is to help business owners improve their workplaces by sharing personal stories and discussing relevant legal issues. Our guest today is none other than the man, the guru, the podcasting legend, Jared Correia, who, among other things, is the CEO and founder of Red Cave Law Firm Consulting. Be sure to listen until the end to hear how Jared would survive being on a deserted island all by himself.
I don't know what to say. What an introduction. Good Lord. Now I feel like I really need to bring the heat.
Yeah,
all right, I'm ready.
Tony's good like that. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Red Cave, just so everyone can understand who you are and what Red Cave is all about.
Yeah, well, it started when I was born. No, I won't go back that far. So I was a practicing attorney, like a real attorney when I started out. And I went to law school right after college.
I can't wait to be you.
Well,
not a real attorney, not
a real attorney. I know, right? I did debate in college, and we were pretty good. Like we were like nationally ranked and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Like, I'll just go to law school. Why not? I can argue, I can write, I can speak. And then I got out of law school, and I'm like, well, this is unfortunate because I still don't know what I want to do with my life. So I started working for these small law firms. Started working with a 2-person firm, and then I went to a couple other firms, and I was like, I'm not into this. Like, I like the business management stuff more. So I'm like, I'm going to transition out of being a lawyer. And my mom was like, you're a moron, but I did it anyway. So I started working for the State Bar Association in Massachusetts, and I did that for like a year and a half. And then the state Supreme Court in Massachusetts, they founded a consulting company, basically, where they were providing free consulting services to lawyers in Massachusetts. There's like 60,000 lawyers in Massachusetts. I'm like, this is perfect. I always had an idea to start a consulting practice. And I'm like, now I can get a ton of reps and just work with a bunch of lawyers because it doesn't cost them anything. And then I did that for about 6 years or so. And I started getting contacts from people all over the place. So I had people calling me from other countries, from other states. And I was like, why am I working here? Like, this should be a separate business. So I basically spun that out, and I started my own company probably about almost 10 years ago at this point. And I work with law firms to help them to, improve their business management, technology, marketing, finances, help law firms to grow. That's like solos all the way up to like really, really big firms. And the best part was that, when I was in law school, I went to the career development office, and I was like, I think I'd like to do consulting for lawyers. That seems to be a niche that nobody's covering. And they were like, get a real job. Ton of encouragement coming out.
Where did you go to law school?
Suffolk Law School.
Okay.
I still work with them. So
what's your focus when you're working with a law firm, whether it be small or big?
I think the biggest thing for like every lawyer I talk to, interestingly enough, they don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I get that a lot. They're like, can I do something else? But really, like in terms of the law practice, I find that lawyers have like 80, 90 different great ideas. And they don't start on any of them because it becomes too big a project. So it sounds really simple, but I had an onboarding call this morning, and I was like, look, we just need to identify like the first thing you're going to do. And then like do it like all the way through. And then we're going to identify the second thing you're going to do and like actually complete the task. And a lot of it is an accountability thing, right? Because a lot of lawyers, even in big practices, even lawyers with partners, their partners may not know a whole lot about business management. So we can expedite things a little bit. We can get them focused. And then they get these wins, and then they start to really build the practice aggressively. And you just stack these wins on top of each other, and law firms can be really successful. I've worked with solos that have grown to be pretty good-sized law firms over the course of time, and I really love to see that. So really it's about focusing on certain things, and I think a lot of it is if they're working on a project and they get stuck, lawyers, they just stop. But I can get over the hump. I can find other resources that they could utilize if they need that. Like you need to find a digital marketing company. I don't do that, but I can find somebody. Like that kind of thing, I think really helps to get them unstuck. So very broadly speaking, that's how I've tried to work with law firms.
Where do you find all this spare time to have, 10, 20 podcasts now? What are you up to? 30?
Take a lot of drugs. No, I don't. I find like the podcasting stuff is like, it comes kind of naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm just talking with you guys, and I feel like that's like people like these podcasts where it's like really conversational.
Yeah.
So I don't think it helps to like heavily script things. So how do I find time to do it? I just get in front of a mic and I talk.
Nice.
So I've got a bunch of different podcasts. I can't break the news yet. I'll let you know as soon as I can. But I'm adding a fourth podcast to my list.
All right.
Which,
so tell everyone what do you have so far?
I'll tell you that one later. That one's gonna be totally unique. So what I got so far is I work with a company called Legal Talk Network. And it's actually interesting because it's a podcast network that's entirely focused on content for lawyers. So it's insanely boring. No, it's not that boring.
That's one of my favorite podcasts, the one you have there. It's really good. That was the one you did the Christmas episode I emailed you about that I really enjoyed. You talked about your mom and brother.
Yes, we were drunk on that episode. So we focus on like legal management issues. And as to your point, like we don't only focus on that. So I reformatted that. I've had that podcast for 15 years at this point. So it was early days. It was one of the first legal podcasts. And it was like an interview show to start with. But I got bored with it. So I was like, let's turn it into a variety show. So basically we have the format of like an old school late night TV show. I do a monologue, I bring out a guest, and then I abuse the guest in some fashion where we play a trivia game that's impossible to answer, or we do some other sketch. And I don't script anything. So if somebody's going to come in, I'm like, you got to come in and like, you got to be ready for anything because I want like natural reactions. Yeah. And that show has been really fun to do. Then I got one with Above the Law called the Non-Event Cast, which is all about legal technology. So we talked to practitioners like Tony, you, Ron. We talked to you about how they run their practices. We talked to technology vendors, CEOs about what they're doing in legal tech and the kind of advancements they're making. And we do that. We do, I would say, between 2 to 3 episodes a week of that one. That's a little bit shorter of a listen, like 30 minutes a piece. And then I've got one that I do with Solo Practice University, which is actually based out of Connecticut. Susan Cartier-Liebel is the founder. And I don't host that one, but we do a monthly show where she hosts and we just spitball back and forth.
I look forward to the next endeavor of perhaps how to do a podcast, and Tony and I can be your guests on there. We'll do it. We're learning this process ourselves.
All right, putting you on the guest list.
All right.
It'll happen.
We need to hear an employment story from you, personal story. Man. Hopefully that there's something that we can sink our teeth into and talk about some legal issues. What do you have for us, Jared?
I think I have an amazing story.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll agree.
Okay, so that's sweet.
This is ripped from the headlines. My legal career, right? When I was actually a practicing lawyer. I told this story maybe once or twice before online, but not for a while. So I can tell this because everyone involved except for me is dead. Wow. I didn't have anything to do with that. They just passed away given the course of time. So I was working at a small firm. It was me and all these attorneys who were each of them at least like 45 years older than me. And I didn't know what to do to practice law. I'd been out of law school for like a year. And basically, they just called me a dumbass all day anytime I asked any questions. So I spent a lot of time pondering my future. Things were not going well for your boy.
So bullying and harassment.
Oh, good.
All right, keep
Should
going.
I stop now?
No, you're good.
So one of the lawyers was, no joke, this dude was like 6'10", like a legit 6'10", probably weighed 4 bills, former Navy guy. And he never stayed home on the weekends. Like I would randomly show up to the office on a Saturday to get something. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, my wife wants me to mow the lawn. I'm hanging out here. So because his wife had him do like chores all weekend, he would literally just stay in the office like all weekend long. So one weekend, he decides that he's going to throw down a couple breakfast burritos on his way to work. And as one does when one eats too many breakfast burritos, he has to use the facilities. So goes to the bathroom, does a number on the bathroom, flushes, clogs the toilet. He goes back to his office. Toilet is overflowing into the doctor's office below us. Water hits the circuit breaker. Fire starts. The building is now on fire. So the firemen come and they get the ladder up and they go into my office And I found this out later because I came in on Monday and my window was gone. The building was a crisp, and I could see like axe marks on my window. So they break into the office, they put out the fire, and there's smoke everywhere. They go into this guy's office. He's under the desk, and they think he's like dead.
Yeah.
So they find that he's got a heartbeat, and then they start doing CPR because they think he's alive. And so he wakes up when they start doing CPR, and he's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And they're like, "Sir, the office is on fire." And he was taking a nap under his desk while the office was in flames. So they pull him out.
Costanza.
And then, right. And the next day I come into the firm and there's like no firm. All our files are gone. The doctor's office files are gone. It was just insane.
How long did you last there after that?
I left shortly after. I was like, guys, what is the burrito policy moving forward?
0 burritos on the way. 0. Oh,
yeah, it was craziness. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And that was like back in the day before like cloud software. So reconstructing everything was a huge hassle.
Did you ever read the book Fireproof? It's about marketing. He's a personal injury attorney in Michigan or Detroit, I think. And his firm, something happened. I think it was the opposite, like the doctor's office, something happened there, and it caused his law firm to burn down. Where did you end up? So
I was like,
that
I'm
was
not doing
it?
this shit anymore. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing law practice anymore. I'm done with this. This is insane.
Dan and I both have very similar background where you know, we get out of law school, pass the bar exam, and work for small firms. And all that comes with that, right? Working late, going in on the weekends, right? Being thrown into things that you've never seen or done before. Maybe a little harassment, being called names,
Just a little.
you know. So like
hazing.
You know, what you know, having that experience compared to now consulting with law firms of all sizes, have you seen any kind of shift in how associates are being treated? You know, is it billable hours not a thing anymore? What have you seen on that front?
No more Saturdays.
No more Saturday. Well, I kind of feel like it's the same in a lot of ways until recently, because like the job market has gone crazy lately.
Yeah.
And now, like all these older attorneys are trying to get people to work for them. They make too much money. And I'm like, that's what people make now. Like the market is that way. You got to pay more to get good people. And then when they get them in, I find they're more conscientious about stuff than they used to be.
Yeah.
Like younger employees, they want more feedback. And so firms are willing to give more feedback. Younger employees want to do more pro bono work. So I think a lot of firms are willing to have that conversation now where they weren't before. A lot of younger attorneys want professional development available, and that's a thing now. I remember, it was probably the same for you guys. When I started practicing law, I remember I went to a firm and I was like, hey, do we do any pro bono work? And they like started cackling. They're like, no, we make money here. And I was like, what are the professional development opportunities? And there's like, here's a book, figure it out. Like that's what it used to be back in the day. But I have found in like the last, I would say like year and a half, law firms are getting a lot better about that because they have no choice, really. The employees are demanding it. And if they want younger, like superstar employees, they're not going to get them if they don't offer those things.
Things definitely
at least
changed.
in legal.
No, it's definitely changed. I mean, I think the Saturday work from home, I mean, I think the requirements of the in-office is shifting as well. The legal field is slow, I think, in making changes in all aspects. And I think it's probably lagging behind a lot of other industries.
I concur.
Do you think that's just specific to law firms, the legal industry, or do you think in your wisdom, all employers are seeing that, change?
I mean, I dabble in, so I work pretty much exclusively with law firms, but I do have some other businesses I've worked with. I got an economist that I work with, for example. His firm's really successful. I've got a CPA firm that I was working with for a little bit. They have to give me a really interesting use case for me to work with them, but I'll do it sometimes. But then I talk with other business owners locally here in Massachusetts where I live. And like, I have seen that is a trend. Like everybody's coming around to this notion that like, okay, newer, younger employees are different. They want different things. And we have to revise our package that we offer to them. We have to advise our onboarding. We have to advise how we maintain those employees. And like, I've also seen this, so things like KPIs or metrics, for example. A lot of people have been like, nah, I don't want to use metrics because it's kind of like Big Brother. I'm watching over people. But the other way that goes is there's some transparency. So if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, hey, we don't think you're doing this thing the way we want you to do. Back in the day, it was like, well, I disagree. And it's like, oh, what? I guess we're at an impasse. But if you've got like statistics, you can be like, hey, here's what this other employee in the same category as you is doing. And here's what you're doing. So let's get you guys together to work on this to try to figure out how to improve what you're doing, or vice versa. And I have found that younger employees, newer employees are much more open to that than they have been before. And I love that personally. I think that's great.
Are you finding that with the consulting that you're doing, are the employers, specifically the law firms, are they receptive to this, or are you kind of twisting arms to get them to come around to it?
No, well, when people come to me, they're kind of receptive because they're like, I fucked up. I need help. But if I met an attorney on the street, they'd be like, you're an idiot. Because I still run into things sometimes for like, when I talk about data, when I talk about upgrading technology, like a lot of people are like, that's stupid. Like, I'm never going to do that. But the people I get, they're like a little warmer to it. So for the most part, I say they're receptive. But I would tell you, like, attorneys in general, like across the country and across the world, really, they are some of the most reactive business people you've ever seen. As you probably know, like they're last to the party for everything. And I don't blame them entirely for that because there's ethics rules they have to adhere to. They're worried about keeping their clients' data confidential. And for me, like, it's a lack of understanding because I don't think a lot of attorneys are like super intellectually curious either. So they're not like, oh, how do I run my business and make that work? They're more thinking of how do I take care of the case in front of me? So I can get them out of that mindset a little bit, even if it's for like an hour every couple of weeks. That's really helpful because they can start to see, oh, okay, if I do this thing with my business, that's going to be successful. And then I can do the next successful thing. But they got to start thinking about things differently. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you have anyone working with you at Red Cave?
I bring in contractors every now and then. But I don't formally have any employees at this point. That may change. Things are ramping up pretty aggressively, but I don't know. I'm trying to find somebody who's as cool as I am. It's a hard thing, or at least 80% of the way there. But I mean, I've run other businesses as well, and I find that like contractors is really effective for that. And I try not to be a micromanager, so I think contractors work well in that scenario. Where I'm like, hey, we got these projects in place. I know you know how to run it, so just do your thing. And I can add more time with more contractors or reduce staff if I need to. So that's kind of how I've been doing it to date, but that may change.
How have you found that approach? I mean, the do your thing with contractors. You're hitting the nail on the head. Obviously, keeping them independent contractors. But have you had any issues with somebody saying, hey, I'm really not an independent contractor. I'm an employee.
I have not, and hopefully I don't. But I guess for me, like I do the do your thing, but then I also try to figure out how to check in with people. So I'll set up like a Slack account so we can share information. I'll put a meeting on every now and then, or on a like bi-weekly basis or something like that. And that's really helpful for fleshing things out. But when I work with contractors, like especially people who do consulting, like if I'm away on business or if I get like a little bit hamstrung and I need some help with some meetings, usually it's like fairly experienced people who know what they're doing. So they don't necessarily need a lot of guidance. And I don't know that I would bring somebody in who's like straight out of law school and has never stepped foot in a law firm before. I really couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the process, the contract. Is it more of a month-to-month situation? Are you trying to assess how they are for a period of time? How does that work?
Yeah, I usually do a month-to-month thing. And I try to do month-to-month for everything, honestly.
Okay.
I do month-to-month for consulting as well because I think in the modern environment, like you don't want to work with people that don't want to work with you and vice versa. So I'm very happy to do that. But yeah, usually it's a month-to-month deal and I'm assessing people as we go. And I don't know, like it was a little bit easier with contractors, but my whole deal, and I tell this to law firms too, is like, if somebody's not working out, you can figure it out pretty quick. So if somebody's not working out, I'm usually quick to pull the trigger. So it could be a month-to-month thing and we're done after month 1. Or it could be a month-to-month thing and we're done after, 5 months or whatever. But I've had pretty good success. We have a technology company as well, and we've had pretty good success using contract developers and contract people who've been able to do document management for us, and contract sales people, contract marketing people. And it's just worked really well for me. But yeah, I wouldn't say I have a hair trigger necessarily, but if I see things going in the wrong direction, I am more than happy to pull the plug quicker because I think it's better for everybody.
Something in writing with that you have the contractor sign and just has some of the parameters of the engagement. Yeah.
I've got a pretty sturdy independent contractor agreement. And in some cases, depending on who we're bringing on, depending on the role, I've thrown some equity provisions in there as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so just to be clear, not a lawyer. I didn't write this, but I do hire lawyers to write it, and I'm more than happy to do that. So we had a big firm draft it for us, and really tight agreement. But yeah, I wouldn't. So I find it funny because I talk to a lot of lawyers, and I talk to a lot of lawyers who are in partnership, and I'm like, "You guys have a partnership agreement?" And they're like, "Nah, we're good." But like, I don't know. I wouldn't even hire a contractor without an actual contract. Like it's in the term. Just get a contract in place. It's not that hard to do. Protect yourself, people.
Couldn't agree more. It's shocking what you see and what we experience with people coming in with their business owners or whatnot. In this day and age, everyone is so lawyer conscious or legal conscious. The fact that people kind of fly by the seat of their pants is scary to an extent, but it also keeps us in business. So
right, and it's funny to me that lawyers in particular, like if anybody's going to write a contract for something, it should be a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes they're the first ones to ignore that and be like, "Oh, it'll be good. I'm not worried." And it never is. Like, yeah, the good thing is law firm partnerships never break up, so you guys are probably fine.
Yeah.
Not you in particular,
right?
Just in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about Gideon. Is that the software company?
So I've got a software company and mostly focused on large personal injury law firms. And the idea there is that it is an intake tool based on chat, and then it's backed up by a CRM. So some of the things we've done in that space are focused on personal injury firms. Like we have a convert to sign tool. So if somebody is qualified as a lead, they can sign an engagement agreement right away. Now, you may not want to do that if you're a boutique firm, right? But if you're a personal injury firm and you just want to take in as many leads as you can, and you trust the software and you convert people and then figure out what happens later, that's a viable tool for them. Wow. We're able to build documents out of that tool as well, so people can have a chat conversation that could spit out documentation for litigation, or in other cases, it could do an estate plan if you get somebody who needs a will. So it's a pretty robust software, and we're about to come out with a new version of it, which will be more of a full-scale CRM. So we acquired a CRM. We're pushing the CRM and chat tool together right now. So yeah, that's sort of my other life.
Yeah, man.
That and the pod. Yeah, I schedule's pretty full for sure, but I've always got time for the Employer Exchange podcast.
So. You're the best. So we appreciate you.
Hey, we would love to have you back.
Absolutely.
I'll come back. I gave you my best story, though. I got to come up with another story.
That was a good
fictional.
One. Well, I don't want to overlook the fact that one of us on this is wearing a tie. So Tony's dressed a little more formally than normal. Tony, why don't you bring us the question of the day? Our deserted island question.
All right. You're going to a deserted island. You don't know where, but you're going to be there for 2 weeks. You can bring one item with you, just one item, not a person, an item. What do you bring?
Okay, quick question. Do I have food and water resources?
No, you don't know what the island
really
is. Yeah, just you have no idea. You're just going to be on a deserted island. There
thought maybe I'd have some chips to snack on or something. Okay,
consider yourself Gilligan.
I was going to be a book, but now I got to be practical about it. Okay. I think I would bring a knife.
Okay.
Because I'd want to strip stuff off of the trees. I'd want to be able to kill any stray animals to eat raw.
Yeah.
And I would like want to be able to, like, I'm seeing like coconuts that I can maybe sever off of a tree, cut that open, drink from it. I'm going with a real Castaway vibe here.
Yeah, I was thinking Castaway.
So like a knife would be my thing, actually.
Good
And
answer.
then maybe if
Very
I had a second
practical.
thing, I'd bring a volleyball and like put my handprint on it or something like that. Wilson.
Shout out to Wilson.
Maybe a basketball. Name is Spalding. But yes, a knife. We got dark here at the end.
Oh, that's great. I like the practicality of it on the spot. It's funny though. We haven't been asked that question. Am I going to be able to just sustain myself? Good qualifier to know.
I'm trying, man.
So,
I don't practice law anymore, but I do have that legal training, Dan.
So Jared, before we wrap up here, why don't you tell us a little bit how people can contact you if they...
I got two websites. You can go to redcavelegal.com to find out more about the consulting, and the Gideon website is gideonlegal.com. And if you see my name, you just Google it. I got a bunch of stuff out there. But thanks for having me on, guys. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for joining us. And we like to close these shows with a tip of the cap to the audience. And having said that, 3, 2, 1, thank you.